Definitely in the building, man. Make sure you double tapping that screen, man. Breaking news. Don Lemon has been arrested, guys. I repeat, Don Lemon have been arrested, guys, for something called a FACE Act. I don't know if y'all heard of that. I most definitely ain't never heard of it. But it's most definitely real, man. And they arrested him at the Grammys, y'all. Yeah, man, Don Lemon has been arrested, guys. Actor slash news reporter, was outside covering the Grammys, guys. He was snatched up. So now he's in jail, and they are anticipating his release, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man, they done got Don Lemon, man. You know what I'm saying? He most definitely locked up, man. Shout out to everybody in the building, man. Somebody down there type. Let me know y'all can hear me out there. You know what I'm saying? If they have picked up Don Lemon, man. Yeah, they got him. What's up, Gillian? We in the building. What's up, Gillian? How you doing? Yeah. What's up, Purple Groovy? We in here. Hey there, my here, mods and chat family. What's up, y'all? Yeah, man. They done got Don Lemon, man. What y'all think about that? After they stormed their church, man. Remember, they was asking for charges to be brought up against this guy. And I guess the first judge, declined, said there wasn't enough evidence or whatever to basically arrest him. Well, they have went somewhere else with this thing called the FACE Act, guys. Into where they say that he interfered with religious worship. You know what I'm saying? Under the FACE Act, guys. Yeah, it's crazy. What's up with Justin Fate? They done picked up Don Lemon. I don't know how many of y'all know that. Pam Bundy basically went on record as to saying that he had been charged and that he would be picked up. And they got him outside the Grammys, guys, while he was interviewing people. Straight swooped him up. Hey, Belinda, how you doing? So now, you got people posted outside of the courthouse. I'm guessing they looking for a press conference, somebody to come out and speak, but nobody has spoken yet. It's crazy, y'all. They done got Don Lemon, man. Yeah, they got him. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, he gonna have to face charges, man. That's crazy. All right, let's go here. Let's find out. This is how I found out. Now y'all gonna find out. Shout out to Miss Pooh Bear for that 5-piece. She say, welcome to Everything News, like, share, and subscribe, man. Make sure y'all double tapping that screen, man. Make sure y'all double tapping that screen. That's how you hit the like button if you're on the mobile device. Or click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up as we get into this and get more details on Don Lemon's arrest, guys. Let's go.
News to start our morning. So let's start here from Los Angeles, where former TV anchor Don Lemon has now been arrested and is expected in federal court today. The DOJ is claiming the TV journalist was part of a protest that disrupted a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota earlier this month after reports that the pastor was an immigration and customs enforcement official. But Lemon says he was there covering the protest. Attorney General Pam Bondi posting this on X, saying, at my direction early this morning, federal agents arrested Don Lemon, Traherne Jean Cruz, Georgia Fort, and Jamil Lydell Lundy in connection with the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. CBS News correspondent Ian Lee comes to us live from Minneapolis. He's been covering all of this morning. Ian, what more do we know about this arrest and how it happened?
Well, this arrest happened on Thursday. Federal agents went to arrest Don Lemon, and he is being charged with the FACE Act. Now, it's important to note this incident happened 2 weeks ago at City's Church in St. Paul. Don Lemon was in there when protesters disrupted this church service. Don Lemon was trying to interview people during that church service or during the disruption. An appellate court here in Minnesota.
So he done went to jail trying to cover a story, guys. The press gets arrested. That's crazy.
Minnesota declined to bring these charges against him. And so we heard that Pam Bondi, from her direction, she ordered that his arrest. And so this still seems like it's going to be an uphill battle for the federal government with the fact that a court has already.
Y'all down there talking about the FACE Act. What is that? Man, look, I have no idea, man. Something new they just made up, I guess. Allegedly, man. I've never heard of this before, but hey, Pam Bundy says real, and they most definitely picked him up.
He said that they weren't going to have these charges against him.
All right, so one of the charges has to do with the FACE Act. Ian, what is the FACE Act?
There you go. They finna explain it.
So the FACE Act has several components to it. The first component is to help people who want access to an abortion clinic or reproductive health, that no one can block their access. But if you keep reading down, there's another section to the FACE Act, and I'm going to read it to you. It's a bit of legal jargon, but just stay with me. It prohibits by force or threat or threat of force or by physical obstruction, intentional injuries, intimidates or interfere with or attempt to injure, intimidate or interfere with. So a lot of things there. Any person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. And I think that's the key part there. This group of people, protesters, did, from when you look at the video, disrupt this church service. So will this be a violation of a FACE Act? And that is going to be for judges to decide. What's interesting also about it is this is really a conflict of the First Amendment. You have freedom of worship, freedom of the press, freedom to protest. And so judges are going to have to determine how does that all stack up. Now, I should point out that the FACE Act has been challenged in courts many times before, and it has been upheld. So that's something also to keep looking at. We also have the Committee to Protect Journalists. They came out with a statement. They said the arrest of journalist Don Lemon in connection with his reporting on a protest in Minnesota should alarm all Americans. Instead of prioritizing accountability and the killing of 2 American citizens, the real Donald Trump administration is devoting its resources to arresting journalists. This behavior has no place in the United States. So again, this will be up to the courts to decide if this FACE Act had been violated.
The lady he conspired with told on him allegedly. Okay, Cal.
It is an uphill battle.
Yeah, and Ian, I just wonder how you and other journalists, because obviously there's a ton of attention on what's happening in Minnesota today and in the past few weeks. How are you processing this moment as someone whose job it is to observe and record newsworthy moments?
Well, when you have situations like this, and I have been in plenty of them around the world. I have been arrested in Libya, in Egypt, and other countries while reporting as a journalist. And so, anytime journalists are detained by police or they are arrested or roughed up, it does send a message, the freedom of the press is in the First Amendment in our Constitution for a reason. But, that being said, a court did say that he hadn't violated the FACE Act, or at least they weren't going to bring these charges against him. So, the court system will go through this. And, it is a high bar because the First Amendment is such a protected, those rights are just so protected. We will have to see how the judges rule.
That's crazy, y'all. They done picked up Don Lemon, man. No cap, man. Everybody's talking about it. All right. It says a little bit more on this situation. Let's go.
This department is devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest, and that is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case. Again, I'm directly quoting from Don Lemon's attorney here. The statement ends by saying, "This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court." That's a statement from Don Lemon's attorney on his arrest last night. We're covering this here on CBS News as our reporters try to confirm information with their sources in LA, in Washington, and in other places. But it appears that this could be connected to Mr. Lemon's efforts as an independent
Let's double tap
journalist to
that
cover
screen, guys. Get the likes up.
Demonstrations in
What's up, Cookie
Minnesota.
Monster?
We were just speaking with our Lilia Luciano, who has been reporting extensively from the ground there in Minnesota, who made the point that after this incident, which you're seeing on your screen, there was an effort to bring charges against not just Don Lemon, but other protesters there. But a federal appellate court declined to file charges, and they also declined to order a lower court judge to sign arrest warrants for 5 people. That includes Lemon. One of the 3 judges said he felt there was probable cause to justify the arrests, but multiple people were charged in connection with that demonstration, and it was also linked to an ICE official who appears to be one of the pastors at that church. And there had been apparently an effort by the Trump administration to make some kinds of charges stick. Lilia, if you can still hear me, can you help us understand that legal effort post-demonstration that ultimately failed to make charges stick to Lemon? Because something has happened between that, obviously, and now.
Yeah, we are continuing to report on exactly how things got to that point of him being arrested, involving the HSI and the FBI overnight in Los Angeles. But look, the officials that I have talked to here in Minnesota have been the state officials, extremely critical of the handling of not just the ICE operation, not just the killing of Alex, Freddie, and Renee Good, but the agents' participations or the agents' activities against people just trying to document what they're doing, and that includes journalists. We have seen agents who have, pushed journalists or forced them out of the scene, saying that they are impeding with law enforcement activity. There's a great deal of concern here in Minnesota, and of course across the country too, with those actions. So yesterday I sat with the prosecutor for the state of Minnesota, who is overseeing the investigation into Alex Preddy's killing and Renee Good's killing. And she was very strong with her words about how the federal government is acting. She says that her investigators, the state investigators, are being excluded from the evidence and the investigation, the federal investigation into those killings. She's very concerned, calls it all unprecedented, concerned with the way that that the government is kind of conflicting with the state. And this is all, I mean, right now, what we've been covering here, this is all happening as Tom Homan showed up yesterday in Minneapolis and basically changed the tone and said that there would be a scaling back of the amount of agents that are here on the ground if the state cooperates. When you see such a high-profile journalist as Don Lemon, somebody who is an anchor for years at CNN, somebody whose face and name everybody, I mean, many people recognize in this country, being arrested while he was at a church interviewing the pastor that...
Everybody in the building, can we take time to double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device? That's how you hit the like button, guys. Hit that like button or click those 3 dots and hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel. I would appreciate it if everybody in the building hit the like button as we find out more details about why Don Lemon was arrested, guys. He faces the FACE Act, whatever that entails. I think I'm going to look it up real quick.
Was being, targeted by the protesters, or, who the protesters showed up to protest. I think you have such a big story, you have such a big concern, such a strong message about the First Amendment. That is what we're hearing from Don Lemon's attorney. We don't know what the charges are. We don't know exactly what Don Lemon's activities were inside that church. But in terms of messaging, go ahead.
Just want to interrupt you momentarily because our Nicole Skanger has just shared with us the specific charges that Mr. Lemon now faces. So we want to share with our viewers what that is. His charges include conspiracy against rights. You're seeing that on your screen, and for violating the FACE Act. Let me just explain what these charges include. On the conspiracy against rights, this statute protects against conspiracies to interfere with rights such as voting, housing, or bodily integrity. For the second charge he faces, this is the FACE Act. That's the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances. This is a charge which forbids using force, threats, or physical obstruction to stop individuals from accessing reproductive health clinics or places of worship. That sounds key. It also prohibits damaging or destroying property at these locations. So, Lilia, now that we know 2 of the charges that Don Lemon faces, it does appear to be connected to that demonstration in a church from about 6 days ago, which a magistrate judge refused to bring charges at that time. And we know the administration has been pushing since then to appeal and find a way to make something stick. I believe you covered this when it took place a week ago. Lilia, you've been covering so much, I'm not sure, but remind us why the FACE Act itself...
I wasn't here.
Okay, but remind us why the FACE Act would be key.
I wasn't here, but the source who gave me the tip this morning, how we learned for the first time that Don Lemon had been arrested, suggested, he didn't have the warrant, but suggested that it would be connected to the FACE Act, and this seems to be what the government...
So Don Lemon was arrested for the FACE Act, guys, for basically reporting on the scene of that church, the protesters storming that church, guys. That's where we at so far, and they hit him with the FACE Act. You know, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Breaking news.
Was looking for. It's an interesting charge. Again, we need to, we don't have the evidence. We don't know exactly what happened. But Don Lemon and his attorney and his representatives have said he was there just interviewing the pastor, doing his job as a journalist. For all of us, it's very concerning to think about when we are there covering a protest, which we do constantly. We do all kinds of protests. The actions of the protesters and whatever charges are brought against the protesters, whether or not they are legal, justified, protected by the First Amendment, you don't have that expectation that you are going to be also arrested and charged for being there. We have been tackled, tear gassed in this country and other countries. But when it comes to pressing charges, this is a very serious thing that the government is saying to all of us. To all of us covering protests, to all of us engaging in journalism and bringing the audience what is happening from the ground, especially when it comes to somebody who is, not as well. He is working as an independent journalist, but somebody who people know as a journalist, who has such a name and a face and is so widely recognized. You really have to consider what is the message that the government is sending, even after multiple courts had refused to file those charges. It's very important for us to understand, and this is something that we've seen the administration do when it comes to immigrants too, that when one state is not friendly to the intention of
they
the
just go find somebody
they
else.
move immigrants to another state. So I'm very curious to know, this grand jury was called yesterday, what kind of evidence they saw. Look, we don't have the evidence, we don't have the facts, we don't know exactly what happened, whether he was obstructing, what he was doing there. But I think the intention, or I think we have to pay very close attention to why this much insistence in bringing charges against Don Lemon, and what is the intention, or what is the message that is sending to all of us who do this for a living, and to the public at large.
And Lilia, I'll just share with you that the consequences of these two charges on the conspiracy against rights, you could have fines and or up to 10 years in prison, and the freedom of access to clinic entrances, or the FACE Act, a violation of that is a misdemeanor on your first offense with up to 6 months in prison for nonviolent obstruction. Subsequent offenses, though, can be categorized as a felony, with penalties increasing up to 18 months for nonviolent offenses, up to 3 years for violent offenses. So serious potential consequences for a former CNN news anchor and independent journalist.
Up to 10 years in jail.
You have been covering the incredible events there from the past few weeks. We'll let you go for now, Lilia. We appreciate your reporting as you are there in Minneapolis. Our thanks also to Jake Rosen, who helped us get you information on this, as well as Nicole Skanger, who shared with us moments ago what the specific charges are. Former CNN news anchor and independent journalist Don Lemon arrested last night. He was arrested weeks after covering an anti-ICE demonstration in Minnesota, charged with 2 specific potential violations: conspiracy to deprive rights and a violation of the FACE Act, or interfering by force of someone's First Amendment rights. We're going to gather more information on this in these next few hours and have updates for you throughout the day here on CBS News 24/7. But
all right, let's make sure we double tapping that screen, guys, as we get more. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device, or click the three dots, hit that thumbs up. That's another way to like the broadcast, guys. It helps out the channel. Make sure if you haven't hit that like button, you hit it. Okay, let's hear from his attorney, guys. Don Lemon attorney has spoken out about his client's arrest. So let's see what his attorney had to say, guys. Let's go.
Independent journalist Don Lemon arrested by the feds. He's expected to appear in federal court as early as today. While we watch for that, kind of catch you up on it. You might remember the DOJ claimed that Lemon was part of a protest that disrupted a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota earlier this month. Now, reports say the pastor of that church was an immigration and customs enforcement official. Lemon's arrest comes the week after a federal appellate court declined an order to arrest him in connection with that protest. This is a listen to what he had to say about that decision last week.
I stand proud and I stand tall. This is not a victory lap for me because it's not over. They're going to try again and they're going to try again. And guess what? Here I am. Keep trying. That's not going to stop me from being a journalist. None of this is about justice. This is about power, and it's about people who are incompetent.
Don Lemon there. Well,
let's hear that one more time. Him in his own words, guys. He knew he was going.
I stand proud and I stand tall. This is not a victory lap for me because it's not over. They're going to try again and they're going to try again. And guess what? Here I am. Keep trying. That's not going to stop me from being a journalist. None of this is about justice. This is about power, and it's about people who are incompetent.
Don Lemon,
wow, y'all heard him
CBS News Justice reporter Jake Rosen asked Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche about Lemon's arrest. Watch.
Do you have a reaction to the arrest of Don Lemon overnight?
Do you have a reaction to what?
To Don Lemon's arrest overnight?
Do I have a reaction to it? I don't know what that means. What are you looking for me to do? Jump up and down? No, I don't have a reaction to it. I don't know that the charges are unsealed yet. So no, I can't. I'm not going to comment on that.
So let's try to go deeper. CBS News senior coordinating producer for our crime and public safety unit, Anna Schechter, joining us live. Anna, what are you learning at this hour?
He didn't engage in the act. He did an interview.
Well, I'm glad you played that clip of
Jake
Rosen's excellent question that garnered that reaction. Clearly, the Justice Department has been pursuing this and trying several different ways. A magistrate judge previously had declined to pursue the charges against Lemon, probably because he's a journalist. But what we know right there on your screen, he will be charged with conspiracy to deprive rights and violation of the FACE Act. So that's interfering by force of someone's First Amendment rights. And what they mean by that is First Amendment rights to participate in a religious service. So on the one hand, you've got the Justice Department saying, wait a minute, this was a church service. Disrupting that is violating the First Amendment rights of the people in that church. And why did those protesters go in there?
That's what Bundy said.
The pastor is an official with ICE. And on the other side, especially Don Lemon's attorney is saying he was just exercising his own First Amendment right to be a journalist. You just saw there on the screen.
Hold on, let's go back.
Especially
Let's see
Don
what she
Lemon's
said.
attorney.
So we got Bundy. She said, at my direction, early this morning, federal agents arrested Don Lemon, whatever that word is, Cruz, Georgia Fort, and Jamel, whatever her name is, in connection with the coordinated attack on city churches in St. Paul. So Pam Bundy, you know what I'm saying, most definitely put it out. Hey, man, you know what I'm saying? Let's go get him.
Don Lemon's attorney is saying he was just...
All right, Don Lemon's attorney on his arrest. Instead of investigating the federal agents who unalived 2 peaceful Minnesota protesters, the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest, and that is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case.
Exercising his own First Amendment right to be a journalist. You just saw there on the screen Pam Bondi's statement that she directed her Justice Department to make that arrest alongside 3 others in Minnesota. And there you see Abby Lowell, that's the defense attorney for Don Lemon, who says that the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest. while they should be investigating the federal agents who killed 2 peaceful Minnesota protesters. That's coming from Don Lemon's attorney there, Abby Lowell. So let's see how this plays out. This is a fascinating case. I don't remember in recent time a journalist arrested for covering an event, but this is a new era, and I'm really curious to see how this plays up and to see if this holds up in court. Reed?
What's really fascinating to me is that it looks like this is teeing up a clash of protections. Of course, institutional protections. One, for religions and people who want to have the free practice of their religion within their sanctuaries. Number 2, the free practice of journalists. For sure, it looks like Don Lemon's attorneys are trying to frame this as saying he needs the protection as a journalist to do what he needs to do. Do we know anything about his actions before, during, or after, either outside or inside that church, that the feds would be able to cite and say, hey, no, look, he was an incursion on the free practice of religion?
This is the heart of the matter. That's a brilliant question, Reed. And what I would like to know is, what does the government have on him being part of the planning? He has said that he covered the time leading up to the protest and then covered the protest. It appears to me that Department of Justice officials might try to put on him that he was a part of the planning to make this happen. We have not seen any of that evidence, however, so we're waiting really for an initial hearing, and this could take some time to play out in court. Obviously, his lawyer is going to fight this and try to get these charges thrown out, but we really don't know what he was doing before. So let's see what the government has. I mean, the bar is high. They would need to have a lot of information.
All right, we have TC. She says, I don't agree with the way they did the protest, but it's news, so he covered it. I don't think he should have went in with them. I think he should have just waited till waited until they all came out. Okay, I bet.
About him
What's up, Jalen?
participating in the planning of this event, targeting a church, for example. So we'll see. This is a surprising development.
Interesting to know. And Anna, just one more question. Obviously, the feds would want to get a hold of Don Lemon's phone records, his email communications, to try to pin some coordination on him. But journalists' communications oftentimes are protected. Do you anticipate his lawyers, if the feds try to go after trying to see what he did and when he did it and who he talked to, do you get any sense that his lawyers would say, no, he's a journalist and therefore should be protected from those communications being released?
Absolutely. You can bet on Abby Lowell, who is a very well-known lawyer. He is going to 100% try to bar any reach into Lemon's personal communications, electronic communications, and let's see if it even gets to that point. But if it does, he is putting front and center Lemon's First Amendment rights to freedom of speech. As a member of the press covering this event, he's going to stick to that because it's a pretty strong argument. Reed?
Freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and 2 protections going to head in the courts. Anna Schechter, this one is so fascinating to me.
So there was more on the situation. Hakeem Jeffries even came out and spoke about this whole situation with Don Lemon. Let's see what Hakeem Jeffries had to say about all this.
Taxpayer dollars should be used to make life better for the American people, to drive down the high cost of living, to fix our broken healthcare system, and to deliver a government that actually promotes the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of the American people. Instead, Donald Trump and his administration have been using taxpayer dollars to brutalize everyday Americans, kill American citizens, and violently target law-abiding immigrant families. It's unacceptable, it's unconscionable, and it's un-American. This administration continues to weaponize the Department of Justice, weaponize the Department of Homeland Security, weaponize the power of government to undermine the ability of everyday Americans to live their best life. because they're so consumed with jamming their right-wing extremism down the throats of the American people. We will not be intimidated by any of their actions. We will stay the course as it relates to making sure that we actually fund the government in a manner that is consistent with our values, consistent with the Constitution, and consistent with the American way of life. There's a big difference between the Trump administration, Republicans, on the one hand, and how Democrats want to spend your taxpayer dollars on the other. Republicans, in their one big ugly bill, enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, ripped health care away from more than 14 million Americans, and at the same period of time, took $186 billion from SNAP, literally stealing food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans. And in that same one big ugly bill, used taxpayer dollars to give the Department of Homeland Security and ICE a slush fund that's been used to unleash a killing machine in Minneapolis, using taxpayer dollars literally to kill American citizens in cold blood. That's what Republicans have done in their one big ugly bill. That's their policy. And Democrats are going to continue to push back aggressively against it. We want to make sure that the Department of Homeland Security conducts itself in a manner that elevates public safety, not undermines it. And the American people are demanding accountability, and that's what Democrats are going to deliver. Question?
Should we expect any sort of organized response from Democrats to the arrest of Don Lemon this morning? And what do you think that says about the Trump administration?
I ain't talking about
The Trump
Don Lemon.
administration has systematically targeted the free and fair press because they want to intimidate America and oppose anyone who is not willing to bend the knee to their extremism. We are not going to be intimidated at all. The free and fair press is central to the foundation of American democracy. Thomas Jefferson famously made that clear, that he would prefer a country that had newspapers over government as opposed to government over newspapers. This is central to who we are as a country. And so Don Lemon, we know, is an accomplished journalist who was doing his job as part of the free and fair press. There's no legitimacy, no basis to Don Lemon's arrest, no basis to the arrest of the other journalists. And the American people are not going to stand for it. And House Democrats are going to stand up for them. And the rights of the free and fair press as central to American democracy and our values in terms of who we are. But how? I issued a statement as it relates to where we are right now. It just happened. And so we haven't had an opportunity, even as members of Congress, to talk to each other about next steps. But of course, next steps will be forthcoming.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. I'm sure you've been monitoring what's going on in the Senate. What's your reaction to the fact that there's not a deal yet with the government deadline looming? Now, do you have any plans to speak to Speaker Johnson between now and when the House gets back? And do you think that 2 weeks is enough time to negotiate the reforms that you're looking for? I know that there's a lot there, so you can.
We have to deal with the issue of reining ICE and the Department of Homeland Security in with the fierce urgency of now. And a 2-week window will evaluate whether that's sufficient time, but there's urgency to dealing with this issue. Because ICE, as we've seen, is out of control, and the American people know it. The American people know that the Trump administration, on all of the things, has gone too far. And that taxpayer dollars should not be used to brutalize the American people, and in some instances, kill them. So, this is something that
has to be addressed. And, Democrats in the Senate, led by Chuck Schumer, supported by the House, made a clear demand. Separate out the 5 bills that clearly have bipartisan support. And then separately, we can deal with making sure that ICE is brought under control in a variety of different ways, including our demand, which we will not walk away from, which is that judicial warrants should be required before ICE can storm homes and rip people out of their cars. Judicial warrants. The masks have to come off. And body cameras need to be turned on for everyone. There should be an explicit prohibition on the detention and deportation of American citizens, period, full stop. And lawless agents who are brutalizing everyday Americans and law-abiding immigrant families, targeting them violently in violation of the law, should be investigated and prosecuted independently of the Department of Justice. We cannot trust the Department of Justice. They're an illegitimate organization right now under the leadership of Pam Bondi and the direction of Donald Trump. And so, if anything, the events of today reinforce, as it relates to the Department of Justice targeting journalists and part of the free and fair press, that the Department of Justice cannot be trusted to freely and fairly work through the criminal justice system. And it reinforces our demand that agents who violate the law should be investigated and prosecuted independent of the Department of Justice and the Trump administration and state and local officials. It should be made clear that they have the investigative and prosecutorial authority to go after any rogue actors who are part of ICE, CBP, or the Department of Homeland Security. Yeah.
Yeah, sir, thank you so much for your time. Could I ask you your reaction to the Republicans' new voter integrity plan, the mega bill, and are there any provisions that the Democrats could support there?
It's a dead on arrival bill. They know it. Listen, voter suppression is part of the Republican plan to try desperately to hold on to power. Republicans, since the beginning of this administration, have been losing elections all across the country. They've been wiped out electorally. The American people know that it's Democrats who are focused on making their life better, driving down the high cost of living, and fixing our broken healthcare system. And it's Republicans who have unleashed this extremism and brutality on the American people and this assault on the American way of life, our values and our democracy, and have had enough of it. And so Republicans are playing games, just like was evidenced by...
All right, so Jeffries has went off topic. We'll come back to him in a second. You know, let's get back to Don Lemon. We're going to get back to Jeffries, but right now we on Don Lemon. So people are agreeing, you know, basically that the Trump and his people are trying to intimidate the free press. What y'all think about that?
This morning with our reporters and analysts. Let's bring in MS Now reporter Alex Taddett in Minneapolis, MS Now White House reporter Jake Traylor, former U.S. attorney and MS Now legal analyst Joyce Vance, and former ICE chief of staff Jason Hauser. Alex, President Trump attacking Alex Preddy as federal agents arrest journalist Don Lemon. What do we know?
Well, Anna, we know that last night, former CNN anchor and journalist Don Lemon was arrested by federal agents on charges that he violated federal law during a protest here in the Twin Cities on January 18th. On January 18th, Lemon reported on a protest at the city's church in St. Paul, where an ICE official served.
And there he goes right there, guys, inside the church. This is part of that interview that he did when they stormed that church that basically got him locked up, man. You know, some people say he was doing his journalist thing. Other people say he was violating these people's right of assembly, you know, basically. And that's why he's being hit with the FACE Act.
as a pastor. Now, we know that 3 other people who disrupted that same church service have also been arrested. And according to a DHS spokesperson, Don Lemon is being charged with conspiracy to deprive rights and violation
These
of
are the other people that were arrested.
That means interfering by force of someone's First Amendment rights. Now, I want to read you a statement rather from Don Lemon's lawyer. It reads,
attorney spoke out.
Don Lemon was taken into custody by federal agents last night in Los Angeles, where he was covering the Grammy Awards. It later goes on to read, instead of investigating the federal agents who killed 2 peaceful Minnesota protesters, the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest, and that is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case. This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing the administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. Anna?
Jake, Lemon, we know, has been a Trump antagonist for years, going back to the first administration. What has the administration now been saying about him and his actions in Minnesota?
Yeah, Anna, I was prepared to tell you that we've not yet heard an official statement of any kind from the White House or from the president, but literally just minutes ago, we're seeing a post from the White House. This is kind of their first official response or reaction to the arresting of Lemon. They posted a photo of Lemon that is a photo of him inside the church with the caption, Don Lemon arrested. And then the actual caption of the post says, when life gives you lemons, and then a chain emoji following. To go back briefly, this is a relationship between President Trump and Don Lemon that has long been contentious. Over the past week, since the protest and the church that Lemon was a part of, the president wasn't as direct in language, but reposted a multiple True Social posts online calling for the arrest of Lemon. And of course, we're seeing that take place now. I'd highly expect for the president to post something on True Social more particularly noted to Lemon later on today. But this is the first comment we're seeing from the White House just moments ago, this image of Lemon and the caption, when life gives you lemons.
Joyce, let me read the post from Attorney General Pam Bondi this morning. She writes, at my direction, early this morning, federal agents arrested Don Lemon, Traherne Jean Cruz, Georgia Fort, and Jamil Liddell Lundy in connection with the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. More details soon. So she says it was at her direction. We've now learned that Lemon will be charged with conspiracy to deprive rights, interfering by force of someone's First Amendment, and those First Amendment rights. What do these charges suggest to you?
So these are charges that I have indicted, but not frequently. No federal prosecutor uses these with frequency.
Thank you,
because they require, in the case of the civil rights charge, a level of intent. In the case of the FACE Act violation, which applies to reproductive health care clinics as well as to religious spaces, it requires the use of force or intimidation. And let's just be clear about something. No jury will convict on these charges unless there are unknown facts about the use of force in this setting. So what this really is about it's about intimidating the free press. It's about intimidating First Amendment. We've seen this Justice Department. It really seems to have a penchant for indicting cases that it cannot convict in, from the sandwich thrower to the Jim Comey failed prosecution in the Eastern District of Virginia. This feels like more of the president's revenge agenda, even though the Attorney General says that the case was indicted on her orders. And something we're seeing increasingly from this Justice Department is that they're willing to inflict pain through the process of criminal investigation and criminal indictment upon people that they perceive as enemies, even in cases where a conviction is very unlikely.
I want to bring in MS Now senior investigative reporter Carol Leonnig. And Carol, you have some new reporting about the prosecutors in this case. What can you tell us?
Yeah, what we've been hearing for really a week and a half has been concern.
Can we get 25 more people to like the video, guys? Double tap that screen if you have not. If you're on a mobile device, double tap your screen. That's one way to hit the like button, or click those three dots and hit that thumbs up, guys. It helps out the channel. Let's get the likes up. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device, or click the three dots in the right-hand corner, hit that thumbs up, guys. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel if you're new.
Among prosecutors in Minnesota about the way this office has basically been hijacked by the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General's office. There is an acting U.S. attorney there named Dan Rosen, and he has no experience as a prosecutor, which will sound familiar to a lot of you on the panel because that was one of the major problems in the Eastern District of Virginia. But the new news here is that those prosecutors with concerns about the immigration arrests and whether or not those were legal, they are also very concerned and declined to participate in this because they don't believe the Don Lemon charges will actually stand up, just as Joyce just referred to. This use of force or the threat of force is not evident in any of the evidence, according to our sources. LA prosecutors, federal prosecutors in Los Angeles, also registered concern, and some of them declined to participate.
Main Justice, how would you say, Carol, this compares?
Well, I think it's very worrisome because it shows, one, that the Department of Justice, via the president, is going to continue directing who is targeted and use whatever means that are at their disposal. Whether or not convictions are ever achieved, to echo Joyce, seems almost irrelevant and unlikely, to be fair. The career prosecutors that I've spoken to, the sources I've spoken to across this huge Department of Justice are kind of beside themselves. Like, when is it going to end? When is this idea of using our Justice Department, which is supposed to be based on facts and law, when is it going to stick to that norm and that expectation that the U.S. public has?
Do we know which U.S. Attorney's Office brought this arrest warrant?
Pam Bundy now.
So I would rather not delve into what we don't have absolutely firm, but I can say that my understanding is there are some cases in Minnesota that we're looking at that appear to be this one, but I would rather not speak about something we don't have absolutely certain.
What's up, Daniel?
Carol, thank you so much. We'll let you continue to do the reporting and be in contact with your sources. Come back to us as you confirm more information, please. Joyce, still so much we don't know. However, we have seen this Justice Department go after perceived political foes. This does feel like an escalation, doesn't it, when it comes down to going after a journalist?
Absolutely, and that's the entire point here. This administration has a knack for trying to isolate people it believes won't be sympathetic to the public. So, for instance, going after people who don't have citizenship in this country and trying to single them out for due process violations was an early example of that. Now they're going for journalists who are independent journalists, hoping that perhaps people won't be sympathetic either for that reason or because they were involved in something that took place in a church. That's a great first place, I suspect, in this administration's point of view to start with eroding the free press. So that's very much what we're seeing here.
I just want to read one chunk and reiterate what Abby Lowell, Don Lemon's attorney, said in his statement. He says the First Amendment exists to protect journalists whose role it is to shine light on the truth and hold those in power accountable. There's no more important time for people like Don to be doing his work. Joyce, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. The First Amendment is one of the most important constitutional guarantees that upholds our democracy. And Thomas Jefferson sort of famously said that if he had a choice between the three primary democratic institutions, Congress, the courts, and the president, and if he had to let one of them go in order to have a free press, he would choose the free press. It's so important to have sunlight. It's often been said it's the best disinfectant. It prevents corruption. It prevents incompetence. It prevents abuse. And we understand in this moment how critically important journalism and a free press is for Americans to understand what's going on. Of course, this is an administration that does not like the free press. I don't think any administration loves being criticized, but this one is determined to tamp down on it in ways that directly conflict with First Amendment guarantees. And these cases will not do well in the courts for that reason precisely.
I mean, Joyce, we already saw a magistrate judge reject arrest warrants for Don Lemon and others because of that First Amendment right and said there wasn't evidence to bring these types of charges. So what changed?
Well, what changed is that prosecutors went in front of a grand jury, and Carol made a really important point here, that the acting U.S. attorney in Minneapolis, not yet Senate confirmed, is someone who has experience as a lawyer that doesn't have experience as a criminal prosecutor. And having made the shift early in my career from a civil lawyer to a criminal lawyer, that's a pretty steep learning curve. The most important part of it is that burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very high standard prosecutors have to meet to get convictions in courts. But it's easy to go in front of a grand jury and get an indictment, and that appears to be exactly what happened here. The traditional standard at DOJ is that you shouldn't indict a case unless you believe you have sufficient evidence to both obtain a conviction and to sustain it on appeal. But that long-standing rule seems to be out the window under this administration.
All right, so we got some more there, guys, with them basically saying, you know, that they're trying to intimidate the press. And then I got another one where it says they are violating Don Lemon's First Amendment, guys. Check this out.
So one of the interesting things about this, Ariel, is as David was just talking about, the first notion of 18 U.S. Code Section 241, which is the conspiracy against rights, is a requirement that two or more people sort of conspire to inhibit by way of injury, threatening, or intimidation someone in the free exercise or enjoyment of their constitutional or statutory right. So that's one of the charges. Again, I want people to think about the video that was played during the lead-in, where you could actually hear Don Lemon saying, I don't want to intimidate anyone. I'm going around everyone. I want to be respectful. So I just want to point people out with that. And with respect to the FACE Act of 1994, that's an act that was originally designed to keep people from harassing people who were seeking reproductive care outside of women's reproductive facilities from being harassed. And then later on, it was added, or as part of the negotiations of getting it passed, it was added on that you could not inhibit people from being in places of worship. Again, you're talking about physical obstruction. And I want, again, to draw viewers' attention to the video where we saw Don Lemon saying, I'm going around, I'm making sure that I'm not in anyone's way. Where I'm going with this, where you add in the fact that you had two different attempts to try and get a magistrate judge sign off an arrest warrant, and then you ultimately had to put this in front of a grand jury, which is a secret proceeding controlled by prosecutors. We all know that. Is that ultimately here, I can't help but to conclude that the punishment is actually the process. I think that the DOJ knows that this is a trash case. This is not a case that they are expecting ultimately to get a conviction on, but the embarrassment or the attempt to embarrass, the attempt to defame, and the attempt to intimidate the press is really what's driving this prosecution.
There may be people out there who say Don Lemon's actions were imprudent, that he was agitating, and may have known about the fact that these protesters were going to waltz into a religious establishment. But even so, that doesn't meet the mark. Right?
No, it does not, because you still have freedom of the press, and he is there as a member of the press covering what is going on. So long as he is not participating in that intimidation or that physical obstruction or any of the other sort of elements of those statutes, he, as a member of the press, has a right to be there and cover what is going on. Now, the protesters, the agitators, that is a different conversation, but it is important to separate what he did in that moment because it is protected under the Constitution.
As a former federal prosecutor, would you have taken up this case?
I wouldn't. I would have listened to the 5 federal judges who've said that there's no probable cause for this case. So first, the Justice Department went to a federal magistrate judge in Minneapolis. That judge found no probable cause. The Department of Justice appealed an extraordinary proceeding. They tried to force the magistrate judge to find probable cause out of nothing. The Court of Appeals, those three judges, they said there's no probable cause. The senior district judge in Minneapolis, in an extraordinary move, actually wrote a letter to the Court of Appeals saying that there was no evidence that Don Lemon had committed any crime and that this was a frivolous move by the Department of Justice.
So to that end, Carol, I know you have reporting that there were prosecutors who did not want to bring these charges in the first place.
That's right. There were, as you know, from the coverage we've been doing at MS Now, there were prosecutors who resisted this idea when it was first brought last week. And as Paul was mentioning, a magistrate judge rejected it for lack of probable cause, and we reported that at the time. It's very unusual for a magistrate judge to shoot something down like this because the probable cause standard is so low. And now again, this morning, we heard and confirmed with two sources that prosecutors in Minnesota and in Los Angeles, career ones, were saying this charge, 241 and 248, don't match up with the facts with regard to Lemon and some of the other people who entered the church. The most important thing to remember is that threat of force or use of force is a key part of one of these statutes. And as Paul mentioned and others on the panel, you really don't see in this video evidence of force or threat.
What's up, Jayla?
David Drucker, well, first of all, Carol Lennig, thank you so much for your reporting. David Drucker, Lemon's attorney is insisting that Lemon was engaging in constitutionally protected activities as a journalist. What does the video show you?
Well, the video doesn't show us anything out of the ordinary. Look, I'm a campaign reporter, and I often find myself reporting on campaign events or talking to voters where I have to sort of contemplate how intrusive I'm being. This is not quite an apples-to-apples comparison, but the point is, as journalists in the field, we're constantly, trying to take into account how respectful do I need to be versus trying to get information. If I'm covering a protest, which I've done before, how are the police or how are law enforcement functioning? How am I positioning myself? And what we saw in the video doesn't appear to be anything out of the ordinary for what a lot of us have done in the field over the years. Now, look, I'll stress here, I'd like to see, the full charges and have all of the details before I make any determination as to whether they're warranted. But I think, politically, part of the problem for the Trump administration or for the Department of Justice under the Trump administration is that they don't have a lot of credibility the way a Department of Justice normally does, right? Charges like this, whatever we think of them on their face, brought 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think a lot of people would be saying to themselves, well, it's a journalist, so I'm a little uncomfortable. But, the DOJ is professional. They don't do things unless they've crossed dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's. And what we've seen from this Justice Department and its top officials is compliance with whatever President Trump wants them to do in terms of going after his political adversaries, people he has deemed political enemies, bringing lawsuits that career officials would never bring, bringing indictments, I should say, that career officials would never bring. And so right off the bat, you're thinking to yourself, this looks like a case of the president potentially personally directing the Department of Justice to take action, or top officials, Attorney General Pam Bondi, taking action that she believes will please the president. And that's, in many ways, the whole basis of this conversation.
So I want to play really quickly Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche talking about Don Lemon today, and then April, I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Do I have a reaction to it? I don't know what that means. What are you looking for me to do? Jump up and down? No, I don't have a reaction to it. I don't know that the charges are unsealed yet. So no, I can't. I'm not going to comment on that.
April, as a journalist yourself, first respond to what you just heard and how a case like this, what it means for journalists. How does it impact our work?
This sets a precedent. And we have to remember that this is not the first time that Donald Trump or his administration has tried to go after journalists. They went after Jim Acosta before, took his press badge, and he won through the courts his press badge back. Donald Trump didn't like Don Lemon in the first term. And the second term is no different. Don Lemon is doing what journalists do. He was not an activist. The person in that video right now that you're showing that he is interviewing was the activist. And he was chronicling what was happening as they walked into the church looking for someone, a pastor who was a part of ICE, who was a head in ICE in that region. So at the end of the day, Don was doing a story, following a story. He was not the activist that let in. Now, what they're trying to do is place activists on a reporter. And that is a pejorative in their mind, and that's also dangerous. They're saying that he, not Blanche, but according to the reports from the MS Now reporter from DHS, it's these obstruction of rights. Did the activists obstruct rights and Don just followed in? This sets a precedent for how we cover our news. Don, Georgia Ford, as well as I saw a report yesterday that the Associated Press, they were not allowed necessarily to do they weren't allowed to do a report because ICE told them in Minnesota, move away, you'll be arrested. They do not want these activities covered. They do not want the nation to see. And they're trying to scare.
All right, so Don Lemon's lawyer says he emphasized that Lemon has been a journalist for decades and that his work in Minneapolis was constitutionally protected. Lowell said Lemon was simply doing what journalists do, guys. So his lawyer is most definitely fighting tooth and nail for Don Lemon.
They're trying to use Don and Georgia Ford as an example. But I'm going to say this revolution that they have right now in Minnesota and wherever else, it will be televised because many of us are in Minnesota. Many of us are in other places using our First Amendment right. And someone who's supporting this First Amendment happens to be the mayor of Los Angeles, where Don Lemon was arrested. She spoke to me this morning. Karen Bass said that she is going to go see him after he gets out of court to make sure he's safe and he's able to be released. She says this is an affront to First Amendment rights as well. Freedom of the press. Freedom of the press. And you have to remember this, Ariel, when the checks and balances don't check and balance out, the press is supposed to have that other layer of accountability. And this is an attempt to intimidate the press from not reporting the truth, the revolution that's happening in Minnesota.
Very strong words, guys. So we found out everything going on with Don Lemon, man, being charged with the fake Act, and basically people are saying that they're trying to intimidate the press. They saying that this is a violation of his First Amendment rights. His lawyer said, man, Don was just doing what journalists do, man. However you feel about it is most definitely in the news and is most definitely going on. All right, so we've been hearing rumors about them want kristinoem, out of office, man. They are voting. They are trying to impeach her. They're doing everything in their power to get rid of her, right? We haven't heard much from her, but she most definitely spoke on it. Check this out.
Tonight, all eyes on Minneapolis, where anti-ICE protests continue to sweep the city following a second fatal shooting involving immigration officials over the weekend. Here now with the very latest, DHS Secretary kristinoem. Madam Secretary, thanks for being with us. I want to talk about how untenable the whole situation is and why. I'm going to get to that. There seems to be two criticisms that have emerged, and I want to give you a chance to address them. One was an ex-post 2.5 hours after the Preddy shooting, that an individual approached the officer with a 9mm semi-automatic. Officers feared for their safety. And that's why the shooting occurred. It seems, as you look at videos, that the weapon may have been stripped, though, before that happened. And I guess my question is, was that statement premature?
Well, Sean, I know you realize that situation was very chaotic and that we were being relayed information from on the ground, from CBP agents and officers that were there. We were using the best information we had at the time, seeking to be transparent with the American people and get them what we knew to be true on the ground. So we will continue to follow the investigation that the FBI is leading and giving them all the information that they need to bring that to a conclusion and make sure that the American people know the truth of the situation and how we can go forward and continue to protect the American people.
As untenable as this is, and all these politicians pouring gasoline on what is already a difficult situation, and that's enforcement of the law, arresting the worst of the worst, and I'll get to that in a minute. The president's called for a full investigation. Stephen Miller seemed to concede that maybe some protocols weren't followed. Again, everything's hindsight 2020, and these things go down very quickly. Any lessons to be learned, handle things differently going forward?
Well, Sean, that's part of the reason why we have several layers of an investigation here. We believe that we can always do better, and we seek to do that every single day. And we want to make sure that we not only improve protocols on the ground in chaotic and volatile situations like this, but that we continue to find the truth around this situation and get the facts to the American people and make sure that we continue to do our work every day with integrity, but that we continue to be able to get criminals and dangerous people off the streets like these officers have been doing for months, ever since President Trump came back into office. They take an oath to go out and protect these communities and to keep them safe, and that's one of the jobs that they take very seriously, especially in Minneapolis, as we've seen this kind of violent riots go forward and attack them.
I think in the Renee Good case, it was more clear cut because we had the video. Clearly, she accelerated towards an officer. Injuries were incurred by the officer, internal bleeding, as I understand it. If I'm wrong, correct me on that. I think in this case, it's a little bit different. Although I don't know why he was there with a loaded gun, and this other incident raises questions I'll ask you about in a minute here. But people seem to be upset over the term domestic terrorism. Why do you believe that's appropriate? Because you used it in both cases.
Well, Sean, we're continuing to gather information, and the FBI leading this investigation is important to make sure that we talk about both these situations appropriately. In the Renee Good situation, we have more information as it happened previously, and we'll continue to get to the truth of all of this. But we can't distract from the fact of how we got here, and we got here because we had a Biden administration that allowed an invasion over our southern border and allowed millions of people to come into our country unvetted. And we know for a fact that we had dangerous criminals and drug traffickers, murderers, terrorists, people on the suspected and known terrorist watch list that are in this country that these officers are working so hard to get off of our streets. Every single day, they work to make sure that they're not just protecting their communities, but many of them live in these communities. And so they're doing work to protect their own families as well, and make sure they follow through on President Trump's promise to make America safe again.
Well, I'm gonna scroll all the violent criminals that were arrested in Minnesota. Let me ask you though about this video that we've been showing, and this is 10 days prior to the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. And what you see in this video, if we can show that, you see aggressive anger, taunting, come get me, cursing, spitting, kicking, all while, carrying a firearm. What is your reaction when you see that video?
Well, clearly there's a history there of attacking our law enforcement officers and our CBP and ICE officers, and that's an example of what our officers have had to face every single day in Minneapolis and in Minnesota, and why I'm grateful that the president had the wisdom to send Tom Homan there to have conversations again to see if he can get the leaders of Governor Walz and Mayor Fry to commit to honoring our detainers and to keeping our officers safe while they do their work. We've been asking them to do this for months. They have refused to agree. We're hoping that Tom has an opportunity to restart those conversations and see if we can get them to help clean up the streets of Minneapolis.
While I ask you this next question, I will scroll the people arrested in Minnesota alone. I mean, murderers, rapists, child molesters, drug dealers, because of the bravery of all of those agents on the ground every day. These would be people on the street, and that those cities and towns would be less safe and secure. And I guess when you hear the never-ending refrain from Tim Walz, Gestapo, Nazi, fascist, or, Mayor, I call him Small Fry out there, get the F out of our city. Well, if they did leave the city, all of these people would still be there, and the people in their city and the people in their state would be less safe and less secure. Do you have a message for the governor and for the mayor?
Yeah, I would tell them to be leaders and to change their rhetoric, because it is encouraging the kind of violence that we see on their streets today. Their riots are attacking our officers, not just when they're doing their work, but even at night at their hotels. And they haven't allowed their law enforcement to keep them safe. Even while they're off shift, they can't go to restaurants. They can't operate safely. They've had their lives threatened and their families' lives threatened. So I would encourage the governor to work with us, the mayor to work with us to get those dangerous criminals off the streets. That's all we want. We have specifically in Minneapolis targeted human traffickers, sex traffickers, and child predators. Help us get those individuals off your streets before they create more victims. That's the work that these officers are doing every day. And they have an opportunity here just to work in partnership with federal officers who are doing exactly what the people who live in that community want them to do.
I call Hakeem Jeffries leader in name only because I think he is beholden, like Chuck Schumer is beholden to the radicals that run their party. And he had this to say about you today. I want to give you a chance to respond to that too.
Let's go. We just watched this.
She's got to go. We are dead serious. She needs to be put on ice permanently.
They want kristinoem out of there.
Somebody needs to go, and I'd start with him. That's my own opinion. Your reaction?
Well, these radicals are attacking me, but I'm just doing my job. I'm following the law, enforcing the laws like President Trump promised that he would do to keep people safe in this country. We're going to continue to go after these criminals. We're going to remove them before they have the chance to murder more Americans, to create more angel moms, and to go out and harm our children and our grandchildren. We have had violent crimes and murders drop dramatically in this country, the lowest they've been in over 100 years because of President Trump's leadership. I'm proud of the work that the Department of Homeland Security does, and I'm grateful and honored to be able to lead them during this time.
I don't think enough emphasis can be put on the fact that over 12 million unvetted illegals, we don't know the actual number because of all the gotaways. We're talking about known terrorists, murderers, rapists, other violent criminals, cartel members, gang members, drug dealers have been allowed in this country. Now Donald Trump is trying to clean that up. He's already closed the border. You've been a big part of that effort. It is sad that so-called leaders won't partner and enforce the laws of our land. That is a real tragedy to me today. I'll give you the last word.
I'm just so grateful that President Trump stopped the invasion. He secured that border immediately. We are not letting any more of those dangerous individuals into our country. Now we just need to get these perpetuators of violence out of our country to keep the American people safe.
What's up, Positive
Madam
Vibes?
Secretary, thank you for your time. Hey, Sean.
All right, so she don't seem to be going like she's going anywhere. She basically says she's just doing her job as Trump instructed her to do, guys. So we'll keep our eye on kristinoem and see where that goes. All right, when it comes to Alex Preddy, guys, we got another witness that has came forward to tell her story. She was the lady who recorded the unaliving of him through her windshield, guys. Check this out.
Whoa!
This is another angle of what happened
Kayla
to
Schultz
Preddy,
is
guys.
speaking for the first time on camera since the killing she witnessed. I talked to her earlier. First, we want to warn you, some of the conversation has graphic language and images. What made you decide to start documenting what's happening?
Well, it's because that's all we can really do at this point. What has happened in my city is absolutely devastating to me. I have witnessed and I've seen videos of my neighbors being kidnapped And I know that all we can really do at this point is make some noise, make our voices heard, and film them so that they don't go missing without a trace, so that we can at least record their names and try to get contact information for their family or friends so that they know what has happened to them.
Saturday morning, how did you come to be there?
I received a notification. I was already out and about, and I went there with my whistle and my phone so that I could do what little I can in order to try to protect my neighbors.
Your video is really important because it's not only a different angle on things we have seen, but you also capture things that we haven't seen in other videos. What did you see before the video?
Before the video even starts, several federal agents crossed the street to come over to my window to tell me that I was obstructing, and they would pull me out of my car and arrest me for that.
Oh, wow.
I told them I wasn't obstructing anything. We exchanged some not so nice words back and forth. The last thing that federal agent who came up to my window said, and he screamed it at the top of his lungs, right in my face, was that I'm a fucking
Whoa.
Have you ever had a law enforcement officer say anything like that?
No, absolutely not. No one's ever actually called me that word at all.
Were you scared?
I was scared, but I absolutely refuse to show them that I'm scared. I think, and we saw this in the video, that they feed off of that. They want us to be afraid, and they want us to be intimidated.
They feed off it.
Yes.
That's, in your personal experience, that's what you have seen.
Yes, I think that is one of their goals. They escalate in every single way if they are not able to use that fear in order to intimidate us.
Man, anybody that hasn't hit that like button, let's take time to double tap that screen, guys. If you're on a mobile device, double tap that screen or click those three dots, hit that thumbs up as we hear from the witness who video recorded Alex Preddy being unalived from her car windshield, guys. So let's get those lights up if you don't mind. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device or click the three dots, hit the thumbs up.
To backing down.
So if you're not intimidated, they escalate.
And that's exactly what happened to Alex. He did not let them intimidate him. In fact, he stood up for two women that they were absolutely brutalizing, and that made them mad that they were not able to intimidate him into tucking his tail and leaving.
Your video shows the two women who are talking with some officers in a vehicle. Mm-hmm. They are right next to you. Those two women are also visible in Stella Carlson's video, shot from the sidewalk not far from where Kayla Schultz's car is located. On your video, there's a man in a gray tan hat, an officer who pushes one of the women.
I don't know exactly whose words were whose at that point, but he, in my opinion, is the one that instigated this.
How so?
He just seemed angry. He seemed like he wanted vengeance for I don't know what. He wanted to be the big, scary guy, and he just had absolutely no control over his emotions. I saw him shoving them very violently. It was not out of self-protection, in my opinion. It was purely out of rage.
You believe that pushing was kind of the genesis of everything else that then followed?
Yeah, exactly. He was being so incredibly violent.
You briefly capture Stella Carlson, the lady in the pink jacket. Mm-hmm. You can actually see her documenting this from another, and when you compare the videos, it really gives a much more kind of rounded view of what is going on. On your video, we see the Border Patrol agent who will end up shooting Alex Preddy. We see him spraying a chemical agent on a woman, or attempting to spray a small bottle of pepper spray or something into a woman's face. Mm-hmm. And he seems to have some issue with his bottle, and he checks it. He sort of turns away and checks it for a moment. Your video actually captures the gun. Did you know that? Yeah. I hadn't realized that when I first started looking at it. It's very grainy.
One moment, there are people being pushed around, there are people being maced right in front of me. That was upsetting enough. All of a sudden, I see so many federal agents, way more than was necessary in order to take him down to the ground. The next thing I know, it's gunshots. It's so many gunshots. I couldn't believe it.
Jesus!
I didn't immediately register that they were gunshots. In fact, my brain, I think, didn't want to believe it. I was hoping, praying that it was anything else but guns. I ended up looking away from my camera at that point and making out that they were holding real guns and they had just shot him.
After the shots, what do you remember?
After the shots, I saw pretty much all of them back away immediately. I was just absolutely in shock. I really have barely a recollection of the moments immediately after, other than just the feeling of absolute horror and also rage that it escalated like this.
You fucking murderer!
So they backed up, and I was sure he was dead. And then a couple of them did approach his body.
Could you see over the hood of your car, Alex, on the ground?
No, and I'm glad for that. I saw the scuffle, I saw him being taken to the ground, and I saw the guns as they were firing, but at least I didn't have to watch him die.
You continued to roll. Your camera stayed on. You hear the officer who took the gun. He comes back and at a certain point says, "I got the gun." You can hear that on your recording.
I got the gun! I got the gun!
Why did you want to talk? Come forward.
I got the gun.
I think it's important. I went back and forth for a while about this. I expect there's to be some sort of fallout from this at some point. I expect that there will be probably ramifications to my employment, to my career, and to my safety. I expect that some people are going to try to label me as a domestic terrorist for trying to stand up for my community in what little ways that I can with my voice and with my phone recording. But it's important. This needs to be out there, and I need people to know what is going on here. I am scared of speaking out and having this public, having my face out there and my name. But if I can muster up 1% of the courage that Alex had shown there in order to maybe make some amount of change, I will. They want us, again, to be afraid of them. They want us to be scared, intimidated into silence. And we cannot. I can lose my safety. I can lose security. They can take everything away from me, but they can't take my voice.
You're scared, but you're still standing up.
Yes. I think it's so important. Now is not the time to stay silent in this, for anyone at all. It's imperative. Things are going to get a lot worse, I think, not only in my city, but around this country as this project expands. And we all need to be courageous. We all need to be a little bit brave. And again, do what we can in order to stand up for our rights. I would ask that anyone who might feel compelled about any of this, go to standwithminnesota.com and donate what they can in order to help us out.
Has anyone from the federal government reached out to get your witness statement?
No, not at all. I did, as soon as I could after this happened, that same day, I went to the BCA office and...
The state investigators.
Yeah, exactly. And I gave them a statement. I provided them the video that I have, but I have not been reached out to by federal investigators.
Woo-wee, man. It's a lot going on. I mean, hey, they most definitely are on a rampage in Minnesota behind the unaliving of Renee Good, as well as Alex Preddy, guys. Here goes a little bit of the protest taking place right now in Minnesota. Lord, have mercy, God. live, guys. This is live. This is live as it's happening right now. Let's go here outside of the courthouse where Don Lemon has been held, guys. All right, so this lady spoke a second ago outside of the courthouse. Hold up.
Protest freedom of the press. The arrest of Don Lemon doing his journalistic duty is one page more out of an authoritarian playbook. And we say enough is enough. We have to fight to protect our rights. Many of our fathers and grandfathers fought and died for these rights. And we are not ready to sit and be quiet. We have to speak up. Every American who believes in our Constitution has to speak up. Don Lemon is a professional journalist. He and his producer were doing their job. Nothing more, nothing less. And he's been arrested. And they'll make up all kinds of defamatory things to say about him. That's what they're doing. This is how autocrats act. We can't fall for it. We have to speak up. When a red line is crossed like this, we cannot be silent. And I want... You want to say something? No. Okay. So I know Don Lemon. My husband created CNN, and I will fight for their right.
Oh, wow, her husband.
Which is guaranteed in our Constitution. They arrested the wrong Don. Thank you very much.
And she said what she said. Her husband created CNN, and Don Lemon was the wrong guy to arrest. That's what she said. They standing behind him. Did she just wipe her nose? Yeah, she just wiped her nose.
He's a journalist. I can't hear. I can't hear.
Says parents were blocked from their children, people were terrorized, they couldn't exit, they thought it was a shooting in a church. How does that make you feel? You have a response to that.
Hey, we can only take questions if we can do it in an orderly manner. So right now, this gentleman's asking a question.
So the feds were alleging this wasn't peaceful, that parents were blocked from their children, people were not allowed to exit the church. Someone thought there was a church shooting. What was your response?
This is why we need independent journalists who will tell us the truth about what happens. We have learned from experience that this administration lies in order to...
You respond to Donald Trump attacking civilians, getting murdered. why civilians are getting murdered under this administration. Donald Trump attacks churches and hospitals. So you answer that.
So the creator of CNN's wife says that CNN is standing behind Don Lemon, guys. That's what she said.
Do you think this will stop here, or where do you think we'll go from here?
I can't hear nothing else they're saying. Lord have mercy, they're so vulgar over there, man. Hollering, forget ICE.
Oh, it's your boy.
Yeah, buddy.
There they go again, man, with their chant.
Definitely over 2,000 people. They're still rallying here in the center of downtown. Everyone was signed. It's cold. No, I have yet to see one. Everyone's what? Yeah. It's been a long march downtown. Traffic stop for them to get across.
Lord have mercy, guys. This is LA right here from the helicopter view. They're protesting nationwide today, guys. Look at all those people. Look at all those people, guys. It's a lot of people out there.
Look, guys.
They most definitely got time today.
Just walk up, it's just basically a straight shot, walk up to 5th Street and take a right.
This is LA. Yeah, and since this is all the things that's going on, man. Nationwide protests, basically against ICE, guys. I wanted to show y'all a bit of that. I seen somebody just announce something about the Epstein files, guys. Well, the DOJ released 3 million Epstein file documents today. Will they all be redacted? We don't know, but check this out.
Good morning. President Trump signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act into law on November 19th, 2025, directing the Department of Justice to produce all documents, files, records, videos, and images related to the investigations and prosecutions of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm here today to talk about the department's compliance with its production obligations under the Act. Around, I think right now, and continuing throughout the day-to-day, as the indexing and uploading completes, we are producing responsive materials under the Act. We are also releasing today a letter we are transmitting to Congress and various internal protocols associated with our review. I want to take a moment to thank the professionals at the Department of Justice who met twice daily, sometimes more, for the last 75 days to get to where we are today. The leadership teams from the Office of the Attorney General, from the Deputy Attorney General's Office, the Associate Attorney General's Office, the Criminal Division, the National Security Division, the FBI, the Southern District of Florida, the Southern District of New York, and the Northern District of New York all gave up many hours every single day on top of their other, of course, full-time obligations to fulfill the President Trump's promise of transparency to the American people. I also want to thank the more than 500 lawyers and professionals across all those divisions that I just mentioned and others who worked long days, nights, weekends, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, nights, weekends, and holidays to complete this production. These highly trained reviewers spend their careers putting bad guys in jail and effectuating the mission of the department. And to a person, they work tirelessly to protect victims and comply with the Act since its passage. So thank you to all of them. Today, we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the Act. Just a quick note about the videos and images. The 2,000 videos and 180,000 images are not all videos and images taken by Mr. Epstein or someone around him. They include large quantities of commercial pornography and images that were seized from Epstein's devices, but which he did not take or that someone around him did not take. Some of the videos, though, and some of the images do appear to be taken by Mr. Epstein or by others around him. Now, I want to talk for a few minutes about the department's document identification and review protocols. It consisted of multiple layers of review and quality control designed to ensure compliance under the Act and protect victims. On top of the review protocols that the department had in place, the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York clearly unwarranted invasion of their personal privacy. The department's collection effort resulted in more than 6 million pages being identified as potentially responsive, including department and FBI emails, interview summaries, images, videos, and various other materials collected and generated during the various investigations and prosecutions that the Act covered. We erred on the side of over-collection of materials from various sources to best ensure maximum transparency and compliance, which necessarily means that the number of responsive pages is significantly smaller than the total number of pages initially collected. That's why I mentioned a moment ago, we're releasing more than 3 million pages today and not the 6 million pages that we collected. I want to address what we didn't produce. The categories of documents withheld include those permitted under the Act to be withheld: files that contain personally identifiable information of victims or victims' personal and medical files, and similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded. Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced. Although the Act allows for withholding for items necessary to keep secret in the interest of national security or foreign policy, no files are being withheld or redacted on that basis. Further, as we previously stated in our December 19th letter of last year, the Department withheld or redacted files covered by various privileges, as we always do, including deliberative process privilege, work product privilege, and attorney-client privilege. As you all know, under the Act, the Department must subsequently submit to the House and Senate committees on the judiciary a report listing all categories of records released and withheld, a summary of redactions made, including the legal basis for such redactions, and a list of all government officials and politically exposed persons named or referenced in the Act. We will do so in due course as required under the Act. I want to talk for just a moment about the redactions that will be obvious to anyone who reviews the materials that we just produced today.
The redactions.
In addition to the documentary redactions, which includes personal identifying information, victim information, and other privileges, there is extensive redactions to images and videos. To protect victims, we redacted every woman depicted in any image or video, with the exception of Ms. Maxwell. We did not redact images of any men, unless it was impossible to redact the woman without also redacting the man. To this end, though, and to ensure transparency, if any member of Congress wishes to review any portions of the responsive production in any unredacted form, they're welcome to make arrangements with the department to do so, and we're happy to do that. I want to talk for a minute about something that is important. Every single day of the year, the Department of Justice investigates and prosecutes those who abuse and traffic young women and children. Just last year, the FBI located over 2,700 victims of child exploitation. The Department of Justice found and terminated 3.8 million dark web pedophile accounts. In August, we charged 11 defendants for extensive sex trafficking in Los Angeles of illegal immigrants and underage women. Last month, we charged 5 men who were engaged in a sadistic sextortion network of deranged young men abusing women. Over the past several months, last summer and into the fall, we executed Operation Restore Justice, rescuing 205 child victims and arresting 293 offenders. I point this out because I take umbrage at the suggestion, which is totally false, that the Attorney General or this department does not take child exploitation or sex trafficking seriously, or that we somehow do not want to protect victims. We do. There are some select members of Congress and some in the public eye, including those most critical of our efforts at full transparency under the Act, who remain silent as to all the work that we have done and continue to do every day in this space, while quickly pointing a finger at the Attorney General or this department because we were careful in our review of millions of pages of documents over the past 2 months. The Attorney General, the Director of the FBI, and our partners throughout this administration work hard every single day to protect the most vulnerable among us. With the production of this magnitude, mistakes are inevitable. We, of course, want to immediately correct any redaction errors that our team may have made, and so the department has established an email inbox for victims to reach us directly to correct redactions and any concerns when appropriate. That's been in existence since December, and we've been doing that since then. Finally, a very small portion of the documents collected pursuant to the Act include materials that a law firm produced to the SDNY in 2019 pursuant to a grand jury subpoena. This was during the criminal investigation of Ms. Maxwell. We determined it would be prudent to seek an order from the court in the Southern District of New York seeking production of these materials subject to the protective order in that civil lawsuit. To that end, the department has filed that motion with the appropriate judge in the SDNY, and if that motion is granted, we'll release those materials with appropriate redactions immediately. Today's release marks the end of a very comprehensive document identification and review process to ensure transparency to the American people and compliance with the Act. The department has engaged in an unprecedented and extensive effort to do so. After submitting the final report to Congress as required under the Act and publishing the written justifications for redactions in the Federal Register, the department's obligations under the Act will be completed. I'm happy to take any questions anybody has about that.
Todd, I'd like to ask you about this, and then I have a Minnesota question for you. On the Epstein release today, it was recently made public that Ghislaine Maxwell claims more than 24 men signed secret agreements with the federal government not to be prosecuted. What is your reaction to that, and what does that mean for her case?
I read an article that described, I wasn't aware that it was actual men that she's claiming. I thought it was accomplices, which I'm not sure if that's a reference to some of the financial institutions or other individuals that
25.
So yes, I don't have a reaction to her filing. I can tell you that we reviewed, as I just described, every single piece of paper that we have associated with these investigations, Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell, and to the extent that such arrangements exist, I'm not aware of them.
On to Minnesota, if I may ask you real quick. That's in the topic, in the headlines right now. There's new video of a man believed to be Alex Preddy, who's spitting, who's kicking out a taillight of a law enforcement vehicle. Does that change the perception of a potential DOJ investigation? Is there going to be a civil rights investigation into his death? Where does that land now that video's out? Then I have a quick follow-up on that.
I don't think a single video should change any perception the Department of Justice may or may not have about that tragic occurrence last Saturday. We've said repeatedly over the past week that, of course, this is something that we're investigating, and we are. That's what we would always do in circumstances like this. And so there's an investigation that's ongoing, which I'm not going to talk about. But just look, the problem is an initial reaction to a particular video, one or another. You're talking about one that happened apparently some days ahead of last Saturday. It's an investigation. So an investigation necessarily means just that. It means talking to witnesses. It means looking at documentary evidence, sending subpoenas if you have to. And the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has the best experts in the world at this. They've been doing it for decades. And so I expect that investigation will proceed with those parameters in mind.
Are you looking at a nexus of left-wing groups? This DOJ said that that's something that you guys were concerned about. Are you following money? Are you looking at a potential that all of this may be related somewhere?
I mean, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Attorney General. You said in your remarks that you've withheld some documents because of ongoing investigations. I've done this long enough to know you can't comment on ongoing investigations, but can you say a little bit more? Because as you know, the department has been criticized for not bringing charges against more people. Are there still open investigations related to Jeffrey Epstein?
So what I was laying out in my comments is the statutory, what the statute talks about what we can withhold and the reasons we can withhold it. I wasn't pointing to any particular, I wasn't trying to be coy or otherwise suggest there's some investigation. As you all know, Jay Clayton in New York is in charge of any potential investigations, and I'm not going to comment beyond that on that.
You were referring to Clayton.
Excuse me?
You were referring to Clayton's investigation.
I wasn't referring to anything. I was just saying that Congress, in their wisdom, allowed us to withhold documents if there were ongoing criminal investigations. That's one of the 4 reasons. I wanted to make clear with respect to any national security information that we were not withholding. There's not some tranche of super secret documents about Jeffrey Epstein that we're withholding. We're actually not withholding anything based upon NDI.
Deputy Attorney General Branch, thank you for your time. 2 questions for you. Number 1, pushing politics aside and everyone else aside, some of the victims of Epstein have expressed frustration with the entire process. I want to give you the opportunity to speak directly to them.
Well, I don't know what you're speaking to. I mean, if there's frustration with, quote, the entire process, same here. I mean, you have a situation where for many, many years, nobody even breathed a word about Jeffrey Epstein, and then all of a sudden it was all anybody would talk about going into the last spring and summer, culminating in the passage of the Transparency Act. And President Trump has said for years what I think everybody will find to be exactly true, which is detailing his relationship and lack thereof with Mr. Epstein, and what he thought about Mr. Epstein, and notwithstanding what the department has been saying for a very long time, we're still where we are today. Listen, victims of Mr. Epstein have gone through unspeakable pain, and there's nobody that should say anything differently. And I to the extent that there's frustration, I understand where that comes from, just from what we know about Mr. Epstein. I hope that the work that the men and women within this department have done over the past 2 months hopefully is able to bring closure. I think that what we told our reviewers is that was the goal. You know, there's this mantra out there that, the Department of Justice is supposed to protect Donald J. Trump, and that's what we were telling. That's not true. That was never the case. We are always concerned about the victims. When we said that we were not legally allowed to release documents, that's a fact. That was true. It remains true today. And then with the Act's passage, we are able now and directed to release documents, which is what we are doing. But so hopefully some of those frustrations are now eased. Listen, any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so, hopefully. If not, they should. The prosecutors from this case in New York have given hundreds, if not thousands of hours to working with victims. And that's what we do every day. And that's what we did in this case as well. So
Very quickly, can you assure the American public that President Trump, like every other prominent person whose name came up in relation to the Epstein files, that all documents, photos, and anything relevant to him connected to the case are being released?
I mean, yes, I can assure that we complied with the statute, we complied with the act, and there is no, we did not protect President Trump, we didn't protect or not protect anybody. I mean, I think that there's a hunger or a thirst for information that I do not think will be satisfied by the review of these documents. And there's nothing I can do about that. But President Trump, of all the people in Washington, D.C. and around this country that have said for years the same consistent message about Jeffrey Epstein as President Trump. And so there's not been a change of course or anything, and certainly his direction to the American people in the his direction to the Department of Justice was to be as transparent, release the files, be as transparent as we can, and that's exactly what we did.
Clarify your remarks on the Alex Preddy killing. Are you saying that the Justice Department has opened a civil rights investigation into his death?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, look, and I know there's been a lot of discussion among the media around that, but just think about what that means. All that means is that DHS, as the Secretary has said, they do every time there's a tragic event like this, and the FBI, in their role, which is a separate role from DHS, is also looking into it and conducting an investigation, and that's not that shouldn't be treated as making news. It's just, we've said that for a week, and it remains as true today as it was last Sunday when I said it.
Two questions for you, one on topic and one separate. Yeah, two questions for you, one on topic and one separate. On topic, do you have any information that you could just share, because 3 million documents is a lot for people who are watching this at home? Are there any new names or new people, public people in positions of power who you're found in these filings?
I don't have anything to share about what's new or not new, and no, I don't have anything to share about that.
And to follow up on that, do you have a reaction to the arrest of Don Lemon overnight?
Do you have a reaction to what?
To Don Lemon's arrest overnight?
Do I have a reaction to it? I don't know what that means. What are you looking for me to do? Jump up and down? No, I don't have a reaction to it. I don't know that the charges are unsealed yet. So no, I can't. I'm not going to comment on that.
Thank you. You said this is the end of the Epstein, of your review of the Epstein files. So just to clarify, is the public going to learn the identities of the men who abused the girls with the information that you're releasing? And if not, why not? And then I have a quick follow-up.
You just baked in an assumption into your question that I have never said and I don't know to be true. Is the public going to learn about men that abuse these girls? Like, what does that mean? I don't understand what that means.
Well, I mean, they're the men who abused the young women through Epstein's,
Look, we said in July, and it remains as true today as it was in July. If we had information, we meaning the Department of Justice, about men who abused women, we would prosecute them, right? We talked about the work that we're doing. That's why I said that. I said this earlier. There's this built-in assumption that somehow there's this hidden tranche of information of men that we know about that we're covering up or that we're choosing not to prosecute. That is not the case. I don't know whether there are men out there that abuse these women. If we learn about information and evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But I don't think that the public or you all are going to uncover men within the Epstein files that abuse women, unfortunately.
Okay, just to follow up on the investigation into Federal Chairman Jerome Powell, is the Justice Department, what's the status of that investigation? Now that President Trump has nominated a new Fed chair, is the Justice Department looking to bring a close to the investigation into Chairman Powell as soon as possible?
I don't have a comment on that, on the subpoenas that were issued. I don't think the timing of President Trump's decision to nominate somebody is a controlling factor in any investigation.
Hi, I just wanted to follow up on Alana's question. So you're saying that the shooting investigation of Alex Preddy is now a civil rights investigation. You're implying that that's always been the case. Can you also say what about the shooting of Renee Good? I mean, why or why not is that a civil rights investigation?
I didn't say it was always the case. I said it's the same thing that we said as of last Sunday, as with respect to last weekend. There are thousands, unfortunately, of law enforcement events every year where somebody is shot. The Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice does not investigate every one of those shootings. There has to be circumstances or facts, or maybe unknown facts, but certainly circumstances that warrant an investigation. So when I talked about last weekend, and when others have talked about this week, the fact that President Trump has said repeatedly, of course, this is something we're going to investigate. That's what I meant about what we're doing. It doesn't mean that every time that there's a federal officer-related shooting, that's something civil rights takes up. It depends on the circumstances.
Follow up on that. Can you just, I know you can't be specific about details of the investigation, but can you kind of just characterize the scope of the Preddy investigation, what kinds of things that they'll be looking for, and who's involved?
Well, I mean, it's an investigation, so what do we think we're looking at? We're looking at everything that would shed light on what happened that day and in the days and weeks leading up to what happened. And that's like any investigation that the Department of Justice and the FBI does every day. It means we're looking at videos, talking to witnesses, trying to understand what happened. I mean, you're talking about an incredibly tragic morning. and then trying to unwind and investigate that it takes a lot of time. I'm not going to prejudice what they're doing or not doing by laying any markers, but I expect that the folks that are doing this are the most experienced in this space and are doing that.
Yeah, so to follow up on that, how would a civil rights investigation work with DHS taking the lead, which is what was said over the weekend? And are prosecutors in Minnesota, I mean, who is involved in this? We know that there's a lot of frustration within the department, both in Minnesota and the Civil Rights Division, that they feel they are not being brought in and they are the experts here. So just to follow up, how would this work with DHS taking the lead, and who is from DOJ involved in this investigation?
I don't think that, look, I think anytime every single federal agency, including DHS, has a process that they use when there's something like this that happens, an internal review, investigation, however you want to call it. That's what DHS was doing, as they do every single time something like this happened. There was nothing unique to these facts. There might have been outsized focus on it because of what happened, but DHS was doing an investigation. I don't know that will stop. I don't expect that investigation to stop because we're investigating, and of course we're coordinating with them. We're not working against them, but there's I suppose potentially separate goals or potential goals in the two investigations. I mean, DHS is conducting an investigation, and then the FBI conducts an investigation. It's not as if one goes one way and one goes the other, but they are their own investigations.
Very clearly said on Sunday that HSI is leading the investigation, and he did not want to overstep and say anything. Was that not true anymore, or was that true at the time?
I don't think it's fair to say whether it's true anymore, okay? And I don't think it's also, I don't want to say who's lead or not lead. I don't even really know what that means in the course of an investigation. The FBI is investigating. They are for sure coordinating with Secretary Noem and her folks as well. And I expect DHS is also continuing their investigation to some extent. And there's outsized folks on this. This happens, like I said, thousands of times a year. And it is tragic every single time it happens. And it's tragic this time like it's tragic every other time. And so there is a process that has to be allowed to play out internally with these law enforcement organizations and certainly with the FBI as well to allow this investigation to go on.
You've talked about the expectations surrounding the Epstein files. Do you agree that the DOJ itself, senior officials at the DOJ, played up those expectations for the first half of this year? I'm just sort of trying to understand what responsibility does the Justice Department have for the criticism that has come over the handling of the Epstein files?
I'm not commenting on criticism. People can criticize all they want. My point was just to make plain that when it comes to what we've been doing the past 2 months and why we weren't able to complete the review of over 6 million pages. Okay, so you're talking about 2 Eiffel Towers, okay, of pages in 30 days in a way that made sure we complied with the act, right? So the act had multiple requirements. Get it done in 30 days, and you better not release any victim information. All right, so there's a lot of statutory construction, there's a lot of case law that exists that says that if those two are in conflict, we obviously are not violating the 30-day requirement by taking our time to comply with the act. And so my comments were directed at this idea that because we didn't review the 6+ million pages within 30 days, somehow the Attorney General doesn't care about victims or is further doing damage to victims because of that, because exactly the opposite is true when it comes to the Attorney General.
Sir, I have questions on Epstein and Minnesota. First on Minnesota. For transparency, would you commit to releasing the body cam video from federal officers that was involved in that shooting and their names at a point when the investigation can allow that? Will you make that public? And I did not hear clarity on whether Renee Good's case is also in the civil rights realm.
I'm not committing to anything with respect to that investigation. That would be completely unfair to the investigation itself for me to stand here and commit to something for any reason. It depends. It depends on what happens with the investigation, and that's a decision that was made by the folks that are working the investigation. As it relates to Ms. Good, I don't, like I said before, There's investigations that happen all the time with respect to shootings like what happened last Saturday, and cases are handled differently by this department depending on the circumstances.
On Epstein, sir, if I may just ask one on that, please. You mentioned a letter to Congress. How and to whom did you notify the White House about the production that you're announcing today before you came out and spoke to us?
How did I do what?
Notify the White House. What was your interface with the White House? You said there's a letter to Congress. Who did you update at the White House about this?
Well, I don't know. I don't really understand the question. You mean who did I update?
Did you provide them an explanation of what today's release would be?
Look, my team has certain communications with the White House. Let me just be clear. They had nothing to do with this review. They had no oversight over this review. They did not tell this department how to do our review, what to look for, what to redact, what to not redact. They absolutely knew that I was doing this press conference today and that we were releasing the materials today. But there's no oversight by the White House into the process that we've undertaken over the past 60 days.
I wanted to ask a question about the evidence in the Alex Preddy investigation. Early on, our reporting showed that the only type of evidence that the FBI initially had in its possession that it was processing for ballistics and DNA, et cetera, was Preddy's firearm. It did not have the two firearms that were used to shoot Preddy. Those were in the hands of HSI, and also there were concerns about chain of custody, things not being properly bagged and tagged, et cetera. Where are the guns now? Are they in the FBI's possession and being reviewed at one of their labs? And who has the phone that Preddy was using and filming? And is that going to be reviewed by the FBI?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to those questions. Look, I think that Secretary Noem is been clear with the American people, but also with the Department of Justice that we're doing this together. We're coordinating, and so I'm not following in the weeds about who actually has possession of the firearms that were discharged.
Wouldn't that be something the FBI would need in order to conduct a thorough investigation into a color of? This is obviously a color of law.
When I said I didn't know, I wasn't being critical of the question. I was just simply saying I don't know.
On the Fulton County seizure of ballots, local officials there, election officials say those materials were set to become public by February 9th and that the Justice Department could have simply asked for them. Why was it necessary to conduct a search warrant? And do you expect the affidavit in that search warrant matter to become public anytime soon? Or do you have any comment or explanation as to why that was necessary?
Listen, I'm not going to comment on. It's a criminal investigation. I will not comment on it. I will say that it should be no surprise to many in this room or anybody watching that election integrity is extraordinarily important to this administration. Always has been and always will be. And so the fact that President Trump and this administration are investigating to make sure that, are investigating issues around elections to make sure that we do have completely fair and appropriate elections should not be surprising, but I can't comment on any criminal investigations. Yeah.
To follow up on that, regarding Fulton County, can you explain Tulsi Gabbard's role in DOJ activity? Could you please explain Tulsi Gabbard's role in DOJ activity regarding the Fulton County search?
What do you mean her role?
It was reported that
she happened to be present in Atlanta. I mean, yes, I saw the same photos you did. I mean, she doesn't work for the Department of Justice or the FBI. She's an extraordinarily important part of this administration. This administration coordinates everything we do as a group. And so I think her presence shouldn't be, there shouldn't be questioned. Of course, I mean, that's a big part of her job. And so the fact that she was present in Atlanta that day, is something that shouldn't surprise anybody.
Sean Maxwell.
All right, just two more. Go ahead.
Just following up on that. So are you saying that Gabbard's appearance in that area had nothing to do with the Justice Department action?
I most certainly did not say that. No, I did not say that. I said that exactly the opposite. I said this administration works closely together in all kinds of different areas. And so I'm not sure if they're surprised at that the administration is working together on things like election integrity. But if there is surprise, let me unequivocally state we are working together as an administration on election integrity type issues, and so that's all I can say about that. All right, one more.
Can you clarify who at the Justice Department is involved in the Preddy investigation? Is it the Civil Rights Division? Is it the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota?
So I want to be careful about, I want to choose words carefully about involved. Investigations like this are led by law enforcement, so that's the FBI. There's coordination with the civil rights, with Harmeet Dillon's group, and there's trial attorneys there that have, this is their lives. They've done this for decades. And so to the extent there's questions during an investigation that require a trial attorney to weigh in, or if you need a civil rights attorney to draft a search warrant or help with an investigative process, I expect the Civil Rights Division here at Maine Justice will be part of that effort. But I don't want to overstate what's happening. I don't want the takeaway to be that there's some massive civil rights investigation that's happening. This is what I would describe as a standard investigation by the FBI when there's circumstances like what we saw last Saturday, and that investigation, to the extent it needs to involve lawyers at the Civil Rights Division, it will involve those. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate it.
All right, so we have they have just released 3 million more documents in the Epstein files, guys. You know, the DOJ says, hey man, we put forth everything we could. There are most definitely redactions within this. We don't know if all the paperwork is redacted or what's going on, but they most definitely announced that they have released 3 million more files in the Epstein files, guys. Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna find in them, but they say they have released them. We most definitely covered Pam Bundy coming out and saying that she ordered the arrest of Don Lemon, guys. You know what I'm saying? He got arrested. They're waiting on him to bond out. One of the witnesses that recorded Alex Petty's unaliving from her car basically came out and spoke on that whole entire situation. We got words from kristinoem regarding her, people want her to be fired. She basically said, hey man, I'm just doing my job, you know, that Trump told me to do. So it doesn't look like she's going to be stepping down or going anywhere anytime soon. We most definitely heard about, we heard from the CNN, founder's wife, who said they're standing behind Don Lemon 100%, you know, so I guess he got job security, and they're saying that basically with this arrest they are basically impeding on the what is it called? I forgot the name of it that fast. It just slipped my mind. They like you know, his rights basically to be a journalist. You know, it's crazy, man. You know, but they most definitely locked him up. You know, I don't know if he's got out yet. I've been covering it for 2 hours. I was waiting to hear from the people outside of the courthouse for them to tell us that he got released. So at this point, I don't know if he got released or not. They're protesting everywhere right now behind the unaliving of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, man. I mean, from Los Angeles to Minnesota, man, to other places. I mean, they even protesting in Texas. It's a lot of uproar, you know, going on behind this whole situation with the ICE and the deportation, guys. I don't know where y'all stand at on that side, but I most definitely can tell y'all that this whole entire situation is getting way out of hand, man. And don't forget that Trump, you know, was trying to deploy the U.S. Army on American soil using the Insurrection Act, you know. So I'm keeping a close eye on everything that's going on, man. And as they keep me updated, I'll keep y'all updated. If you haven't hit that like button yet, man, double tap that screen. You know, that's one way to hit the like button if you're on a mobile device. So click those 3 dots, hit that thumbs up. and most definitely subscribe to the channel if you are new, guys. So that's everything I have on the Epstein files, Don Lemon arrest, Alex Pretty situation, the protest is going on right now. I brought y'all all of that within this live stream. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. Shout out to the new subscribers as well as my old ones. Shout out to my new members as well as my old members. If you're looking to get a membership to support this channel, you can most definitely go back to my home screen and click the join button, guys. Shout out to my moderators for keeping this chat rolling smooth. I know sometimes it gets a little out of hand, but I most definitely appreciate each and every one of y'all for the awesome job that y'all do, guys. Sump, I didn't get nothing wrong. I just covered all of this. Let's get Sump on a rocket ship right up out of here. You know what I'm saying? Let's get Sump. You know, if I got a moderator still in the building, let's get Slump right up out of here. Slump about to get slumped. We getting you've been deported, my guy. You know what I'm saying? Have an unsafe journey to which you will never return, guy. You know what I'm saying? We got more rockets than Elon Musk and deport people faster than Trump and ICE. Don't you ever forget that. I'm Donald Trump on this page over here, boy. Don't you ever insult me. You know what I'm saying? You go get your stuff together and find you something else to do. Go find you another channel to watch, you know, your news on. Shout out to the people that appreciate me. I appreciate y'all. And with that being said, Sidewalk Gang, checking out. I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Y'all be safe. I'm gone.